This is the stream discharge lecture for ENR 4345, Methods in Aquatic Ecology course at The Ohio State University. In this lecture, you will first learn the differences between a lentic and lotic system. Next, I will define velocity and discharge, and you will learn the differences between these metrics, as well as how to calculate each of them. Finally, you will learn what a hydrograph is, how to read it, and how it relates to our class. A lotic system is one that has flowing water, such as a river or stream, whereas a lentic system has still or slowly moving water, like a lake, pond, or a wetland. I've added two examples from Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. On the left, you see Annie Creek, which has a fast-flowing river as an example of a lotic system. Whereas on the right, you see Crater Lake, which has slowly moving water and is a lentic system. Something cool about Crater Lake is that it's the deepest lake in the United States, and it's unique in that it doesn't have any stream inlets or outlets. The next definition on this slide is the thalweg, which is defined as the deepest part of the river, as well as the part of the river that has the fastest velocity. In this slide, I'm going to talk about velocity and discharge. These are two different metrics, and it's important for this class that you understand the difference between them. Velocity, represented by a v, is the speed of water over time. The velocity of the water is important because it can tell us a lot about the habitat and what might live in that habitat. For example, I have added an image of a high-velocity river in the Columbia River Gorge. The habitat depicted might be best suited for species like a darter or a flat-headed mayfly, but it would not be a good habitat for a cattail because the plant's seeds would be carried downstream before they can embed in the sediment to grow. Discharge, which is represented by a Q, is the volume of water moving across a cross-sectional area over a certain period of time. In other words, discharge is a rate of water flow over a unit of time. Discharge can help scientists understand if there's enough water for a threatened fish species during the dry season, or if there will be enough water for downstream irrigation or water treatment plant needs. Velocity, which is represented by the capital V, is calculated as distance over time. The velocity of the river is not consistent at all the depths of the river. At the bottom of the river, or near the stream banks, the velocity is lower, and the thalweg has the highest velocity. In the figure on the right, we see the depth of the stream bed on the y-axis, as well as the velocity on the x-axis. You can see that the velocity profile changes at different depths of the stream. The average velocity is measured at 60% of the stream depth, shown by this red arrow. When we're calculating discharge, you want to use the average velocity, which is why in lab we'll be measuring the velocity at 60% depth. Discharge is calculated as the average velocity times the area. The units for discharge are meters cubed per second, which is often written as CMS. The imperial units are feet cubed per second, which is often written as CFS. For this class, we will only be using the metric units, meters cubed per second. As a reminder, the area is calculated as depth times the width of the sampled area and has units of meters squared. On this slide, I have an example of a hydrograph, which is a graph showing stream discharge at a certain location over a period of time. This example shows the discharge of the Tongue River in Montana, with the x-axis showing the period of 2 years, starting in October, and the y-axis showing the discharge in meters cubed per second. As you can see, the discharge of the river increases in the spring in both years, which is consistent with snowmelt in the area. I also want to point out that although the x-axis for this particular hydrograph is for a period of 2 years, Hydrographs can display a wide variety of time periods, ranging from as small as minutes to as long as centuries. This is a figure showing a storm hydrograph, a hydrograph of just one storm event in a river. The x-axis is showing time, whereas the y-axis is showing discharge of the stream. You'll notice that at the top of the figure we also see precipitation, indicating the timing and how many millimeters of precipitation occur. The base flow is the water that enters the stream from groundwater. The rising limb shows the increase in discharge from the precipitation event. You'll notice that there is a lag time between the time when the precipitation occurs and the start of the increase in discharge by the rising limb. The peak is when the stream is at maximum discharge. The word quick flow here just describes the water that comes into the stream from precipitation. Finally, you'll notice the falling limb showing a decrease in discharge after the peak flow has occurred, and the stream is returning to base flow after the precipitation event. In some places, scientists want to make frequent measurements of the water height throughout the year. One way this can be done is with a staff gauge. This is an example of a staff gauge placed in the Green River within Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. A staff gauge is one way that scientists can collect measurements of how deep a stream is and how much the stream discharge varies throughout a period of time. This piece of equipment can also be used to find the mathematical relationship between discharge and stream height when it is used consistently over time. This photo was taken from the USGS websites. All of the dots are indicating stream gauges across the continental United States that are collecting stream velocity and discharge data. I took this image in June of 2025, and at that time, daily stream discharge for more than 9,000 sites across the continental US were available. This website is free to use and it can be very useful. Here, I have zoomed in on the USGS map of the United States to show the stream gauges just in the state of Ohio. There's a stream gauge on the Olentangy River in Worthington, Ohio, that is just upstream of the wetlands where we meet for our labs. Your instructors will be regularly checking the hydrograph data for this stream gauge to determine whether or not it is safe for students to enter the Olentangy River on any given day. On the right, I have an example of this hydrograph that I screenshotted on April 7th of 2025 after a storm event, as well as a photo of the conditions I took on that day. You'll notice that the stream discharge is increasing after each storm event and then returning back to the base flow. I also want to point out what happened just before these storm events. You'll notice that the base flow was increased and was held at a steady rate for about a day before the event. There's a dam upstream of the wetlands, and the dam operators decided to release water out of the dam in preparation for these storm events as they were predicted. This is very commonly seen at this site, especially in the spring when there are more storm events and the Olentangy River is more prone to flooding.